No problem. There we go. We should almost be live. Not quite, but almost. Come on, Grain. Why are you so slow? There it is. There it is. Wow, we're live, Beena.
Hello and welcome to Moreness-Culture. Good morning, Syl. Good morning, Rain. And good morning, everyone who is going to watch us live and recorded also. You all are most welcome to join this Moreness-Culture. This is what we are doing. This is what Syl has created for us, and this is what we are sharing every day almost. Sorry for not being here because it was because of appropriateness. We were not able to, and situations, circumstances were asking us to focus on other things, and that's why we were not here yesterday. Anyway, today we are here and we are back, and we are busy with, for all the newcomers who are joining us, what we are doing here. First, again, I just want to emphasize, because the emphasis is so important for me, that Syl has created this moreness space for us. This is where you can be not only yourself, but where you can be more. This is the space where you can share, capital S share, without any hesitation, without having any obligation. If you want to come and join us, you are most welcome. Having a free space where you can be yourself, where you can actually look for being more than what your expectations are with yourself, is a blessing. This is a true blessing. Of course, you can exercise your moreness here. You can imagine yourself being more than who you are right now. So this space, this free space, is so important and so valuable. And Syl has created this, and this is what we do every single day. We come here and we share. But the main project, what we are doing and busy with, is capital R reading. Capital R reading of Carlos Castaneda's book. It's about Don Juan. And this is what we are busy with. We are on book 2 right now. And we are doing this. Capital R reading itself is a very sophisticated process. It's a process where you can extract value even if it is not shared directly or even not existing there. You can extract value. Syl, you are muted. Syl, you are muted. Okay, anyway. So he's on call. Sorry, I was just assuming that he's talking to me. Anyway, so we are busy with doing the capital R reading of Carlos' books about Don Juan. And this process of capital R reading is to have and extract and create value even if it is not there. I'm not saying that the Carlos books about Don Juans are not valuable. They are amazingly, tremendously valuable for everyone who just want to understand the moreness concept. Because what Don Juan was sharing at the time was moreness. He was not emphasizing on this medium and this medium only. Yes, mediums are valuable, interesting, new at that time, but the actual core of it was there is more than what we assume it is. There is more than what we just see. That's why he created the concept of perceiving. And it was about energies. At that time, it was revolutionary. It was completely new. And of course, life-changing for many of us. And it changes many lives, not only lives, but also the literature and the whole society at that time. And still it is influencing. So we are busy with capital R reading with a very specific intent to connect with Don Juan. Not only just get fascinated and inspired and impressed by his mediums, what he was using to extract moreness, but to connect with him, to connect with his intent to create and share moreness, which is of course completely aligned with what we are doing. Don Juan shared many things, many new things, revolutionary ideas and concept. Of course, Carlos was also part of it because he himself, I really feel that he was a very brave person because he was just going there and experimenting things, putting himself as an object in those experiments, which were completely alien to him. It needs a lot of courage, of course. And Carlos was doing that. So what we are busy with, we are sharing the ideas and the concept, what Don Juan has shared, and Carlos was making it accessible for us. This is the concept we are sharing. While Syl is busy, I will keep talking. This is what I love to, because I always love to share. Anyway, this is what we are doing right now. My thought of the day, other than this capitalist sharing, I am on a project. Okay, this is my fun project. I love exploring things, and my fun might not be as sound as fun for you guys, or maybe it's just my assumption anyway. I was observing the rap culture. I was trying to understand that, what it is, why it is so attractive for many people. And I was observing the TikTok also. And of course, it's a TikTok culture. And it has so much more than what we just observe on surface. There's so much. And of course, the implications on the world. What we are experiencing right now, soon the world will change, as it was always been. My grandparents or forefathers, they would say that, okay, this world is so chaotic, Beena. What you are talking about is so disturbing, and could be many different perspectives. And then same for everyone. And as I'm saying right now, I would say for other people, another generation, next generations, like, oh my God, they are horrible, they are doing this and all that. But I don't want to get into this type of thinking and judgments about other things, but just to observe and try to understand that what is going on. Syl, you are muted, you are on mute, so please unmute yourself.
I am. Yeah, keep going, Beena. Keep going. Because I took a phone call real quick there, and it was important.
Okay.
It was from the people from the Moreness show.
Okay.
The guy who does the banners and the graphic design and all that. So
Okay.
he got a few
Perfect.
details.
Congrats. Things are moving.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
my understanding. Okay, you are still busy?
No, I'm done. I'm just
Okay.
finishing the sharing, but keep going. Keep
Okay.
going. Yeah.
Okay. So I was just, this is my project right now. This is my fun activity also, to observe and try to understand different cultures. When I'm saying culture, it is about like the rap culture, the singers, how they rap culture, not only that, okay, how people are listening to that. No, just specific how the singers, how the musicians of that particular genre is creating a different culture, and what are the implications, of course. So I'm very interested into this right now. It's been 2 weeks now. I'm just observing and trying to understand that, because they not only have a different vocabulary, but they also have a different language. Not only their body language is different, but their philosophy is different. Their priorities are different. Yes, it's like duh, but their ideology is completely different. And of course, the way they understand each other is very different. And it is fun to understand, trying to understand. Of course, I don't have access to different things, and I don't want to, because again, distraction is something I don't want in my life, unless or until I choose. So this is something I just choose for myself, that I want to understand different cultures right now existing different culture, and these cultures are not based on any ethnicity, and these cultures are not based on any specific language. These cultures are not based on any
Right.
or anything.
Subcultures that are
These
not
culture, yes,
nationality orientated.
no,
Yeah.
yes, these culture are very universal, but also they are very
Yeah.
private. Like rap culture,
Yeah.
it's universal now thanks to internet, but also it is very private, because they have
Yeah.
a different language. Their philosophies of life is different. The way they actually perceive others is very different. You might agree
Yeah.
with this or not, you might like it or not, it doesn't matter. It is different, and it exists. And same
Yeah.
too, I personally feel that, okay, for the TikTok, and like, I'm just naming TikTok because I'm aware of it right now.
Right.
I don't know how to use it, but yes, like different apps like that,
TikTok and
because
similar. Yeah.
yes, TikTok and similar, exactly, because they have a different algorithm. They have a different. So now generations, according to my understanding, I'm just sharing my perspective. Generation and generation gaps are not actually divided or described by generation and years, and the which year you born and decades and all that, but it is about which apps and algorithm you are using. TikTok people are different. Similar apps, they are different. New people will be different. So the generation gap is just now not only getting shrink, but also its definition is going to be completely different. It is described by that how you access internet and how you connect with other people. Of course, it is going to define
It's
the
a big
generation
shift.
we belong to. It's a big, huge shift, and I love this. Okay, I love this changes and how things are happening. I was watching someone who was sharing about that how new YouTube actually changes everything. And then one incident he shared, and I was amazed by that because he shares that he was a musician, and he says that never before we saw how the music has actually been played. Because in concerts, we used to just watch them that, okay, they're playing in front of us. Or in the videos, we used to watch them that, okay, yes. But if you see that, okay, after YouTube, you start seeing that one person who is actually how he is playing, like someone is just playing guitar in front of the webcam. You can see that how he is actually tuning the strings and all these things. So it changes the perspective, which has implications. We assume that, okay, oh, that the perspective is different now. Yes, we can see more. No, you cannot only see more, you can perceive more. Because by having different multiple view perspective, your mind, your subconscious get the signal that there is always more. See, we were tuned to accept the existence of moreness. Every single new innovation is giving you this proof that there is always more, and your mind, your subconscious is getting tuned and accustomed with the moreness, the existing moreness. The more you will see different perspective, more or the less you will be rigid. The less you will be rigid about anything. You will say, oh yes, there is always more. Yes, this perspective right now I have, it is working fine, absolutely working for me. It is new, but it is new and it is valid and it is relevant till the new perspective will come, and you will have this. So that it is going to change the human psychology. Different cameras giving you a different perspective is just not for your visual feast that, oh yes, oh this is so brilliant, but it is for your subconscious and your consciousness also, because it is providing you a proof every single time that there is always more, which was there, but you were not able to perceive that. Which means that it's still, even if I can see like 100 shots of different multiple shots for something, there's always more. Who knows? And
There's always more in this culture.
Yes,
That's the
and it is
magical.
making me less
Always more.
rigid about my ideas and my perspectives. So anyway, Syl, I hope that you are done with this, everything now.
Oh, I am. I was enjoying listening to you, Beena. I'm enjoying listening to you.
I was just sharing my things so that I can keep going and going and
It's
going.
brilliant. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. I'm just trying to figure out how to get my camera to be shift for Instagram because it cuts it off. It just, I'm trying to figure that out. But anyway, we'll look at that another day. So, all right, let's continue with our reading. And
Exactly.
we were lost where Don Juan, he had asked Carlos to bring some bottles of special tequila, Bacanora tequila. And his idea was to get his grandson, Lucio, and a few of his friends together and to try and get Lucio interested in taking peyote, in other words, to get connected to mescalito. Right? So this was Don Juan's kind of stratagem. And personally, I feel there were some missing elements because there's a disconnect with the psychology and the motivation of Lucio. You're not appealing to his prime motivation, which is a skewed motivation. It's a self-importance image motivation. And it wasn't connecting to that needs to shift, because you can't have him take peyote or get connected to mescalito when that is the prime motivation. It's never going to work. So Don Juan is not getting him interested because he's not making the difference between the motivations. He sort of does, but not very well. He doesn't say, yes, okay, if you get what you want, where do you end up? Where are you going, right? He doesn't show the hollowness of that particular agenda and that particular motivation and goal. So to me, a little bit lacking in strategy, but all right, it's complicated and it's difficult, right? And doesn't quite always have the opportunity and the forum to discuss things. So it's tricky, but he's trying. So we're still on this topic, right? But now Don Juan isn't there, and this was 2 days later, right? We'll start to read from there. All right, let me screen share, and then we continue. All right, here we go. Very good. We read a little bit of this, but we'll read it as a recap as well, right? Beena, will you read, please, or do you want me to read?
No, you please read, because it is still blur for me. So it is uploading, but
Oh,
yes.
okay. Okay. Read in 1 second. There we go. Brilliant, 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 brilliant. Hello, everybody on TikTok. Hello, everybody on Instagram. Hello, everybody on YouTube. So say hello to you all. All right, 2 days later, on September the 6th, Lucio, Benigno, and Lucio came over to the house where I was staying to go hunting with me, which is rather interesting that they're going to go hunting. Right? They remained silent for a while as I kept writing my notes. Then Benigno laughed politely as a warning that he was going to say something important. After a preliminary embarrassing silence, he laughed again and said, Lucio here says that he would take peyote. Would you really? I asked. Yes, I wouldn't mind it. Benigno's laughter came in spurts. Lucio says he will eat peyote if you buy him a motorcycle. Lucio and Benigno looked at each other and broke out laughing. How much is a motorcycle in the United States? Lucio asked. You could probably get one for $100, I said. That isn't very much there, is it? You could easily get it for him, couldn't you? Benigno asked. Well, let me ask your grandfather first, I said to Lucio. No, he protested. Don't mention it to him. He'll spoil everything. He's a weirdo. And besides, he's too old and feeble-minded, and he doesn't know what he's doing. Now, here we get to something very, very interesting. We get to see split psychology. I call this split psychology, right? The bubble psychology, which is really what it is. And when we understand bubble psychology, we understand that when you're in one bubble, the reality of the other bubble coexists, but doesn't impact on the bubble logic that you're aware of, right? So bubble logic, it only uses the information inside the bubble, right? And they coexist, which is quite fascinating. And you will see this in the external behavior, which takes both into account, and you get very weird and strange behavior, very contradictory behavior from people, because they are trying to satisfy, well, not just two bubbles, but multiple bubbles sometimes. But typically it's two, yeah, because it's hard to do more than that. But here we get this first point from Lucio, where he says, right, let's repeat what he says. He's a weirdo. And besides, he's too old and feeble-minded and doesn't know what he's doing. This is, of course, completely untrue, but it's a convenient point. And it's supposed to be because Don Juan is old, right? And Lucio is very given to superficialities. So Don Juan is old, that means he must be feeble-minded. And he's different, that makes him a weirdo, right? See how it all goes to that formula. I mean, when you look at it from overview perspective, it's absurd. But within the bubble, it makes total sense. This is very important to understand. Bubbles are basically madness bubbles, right? And they're illogic, unreasonable bubbles, right? And that's what makes them the bubble, right? But it satisfies a particular motivation, a particular ideology, and a particular hierarchy of importance, right? For Lucio, image is everything. So he judges everything by image. Don Juan is old, therefore he must be feeble-minded, and he's different. It makes him weird. See, very, 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 very shallow, but still, it predominates his life, right? But now look, Carlos breaks this apart here in his own way, which is quite wonderful, right? And besides, he's too old and feeble-minded and doesn't know what he's doing. He was a real sorcerer once, Benigno added. I mean, a real one. My folks say he was the best, but he took to peyote and became a nobody. Now he's too old. It's interesting that Benigno kind of adds to this a little bit. Again, how they interpret things, right? They're interpreting superiority paradigm. I mean, it's technically true what he's saying, but in the actuality, Don Juan is way more now than when he was a sorcerer. But they cannot conceive of that moreness that Don Juan is now, right? They just can't conceive of it. They only think sorcering is all about power, regular, ordinary, physical dominance power, being able to defeat your enemies with magic. I mean, it's like really absurd stuff, right? Uh, Now he's too old. And he goes over and over the same crappy stories about peyote, Lucio said. That peyote is pure crap, Benigno said. You know, we tried it once. Lucio got a whole stack of it from his grandpa. One night as we were going to town, we chewed it. Son of a bitch, it cut my mouth to shreds. It tasted like hell. Did you swallow it? I asked. We spit it out, Lucio said, and threw the whole damn sack away. They both thought the incident was very funny. Eligio, in the meantime, had not said a word. He was withdrawn, as usual. He did not even laugh. Would you like to try it, Elisha? I asked. No, not me, not even for a motorcycle. Lucio and Benigno found the statement utterly funny and roared again. Elisha wasn't trying to be funny, though. uh, Nevertheless, Elisha continued, I must admit that Don Juan baffles me. My grandfather is too old to know anything, Lucio said with great conviction. Yeah, he's too old, Benigno echoed. I thought the opinion of the two young men had of Don Juan was childish and unfounded. I felt it was my duty to defend his character, and I told them that in my judgment Don Juan was then, as he had been in the past, a great sorcerer, perhaps even the greatest of all. I said I felt there was something about him, something truly extraordinary. Yeah, very good. I urged them to remember that he was over 70 years old, and yet he was more energetic and stronger than all of us put together. I challenged the young men to prove it to themselves by trying to sneak up on Don Juan. You can't sneak up on my grandpa, Lucio said proudly. He's a brujo. He's got the bubble shifts now, right? 2 seconds ago, he was old and feeble. Now he's all proud of his grandpa. You can't sneak up on my grandpa, Lucio said proudly. He's a brujo. Beena, please continue reading. Can you see? I got the phone call again.
Okay, okay. You just can't sneak up on my grandpa, Lucio said proudly. He's a brute. I reminded them that they had said he was too old and feeble-minded, and that a feeble-minded person does not know what goes on around him. I said that I have marveled at Don Juan's alertness time and time again. No one can sneak up on a brujo, even if he is old, Benigno said with authority. They can gang up on him when he's asleep. Though that's what happened to a man named, I guess it's a
Vicas.
Civicus. Yes, Civicus. People got tired of his evil sorcery and killed him. I asked
So that
them to give me all.
alertness, right, Beena? Sorry, just to
Yes,
interrupt here.
yes.
It was a spam caller, so right. That alertness is awareness. When you're aware more than when you step out of your bubble, because what happens when you're in a bubble? You're always thinking about Lucio. It's always thinking about image, image, image. Look, even when it came to, he said proudly, he's getting benefit from Don Juan. Yeah, see?
Yes.
All bubble like that. But when you have awareness, you are aware of what's around you, and you are not pulled into a bubble because you don't have foolish agendas and motivations. Yes, when your motivation is awareness, and particularly if it is attunement, you are now connected to things. You are part of the moreness that is life. You are part of the moreness that is life. It's a fantastic way to be. But of course, you're going to be alert. Why? Because you are not inside your bubble. That limits you. It puts you in a bubble, and you don't see what's going on around you. You don't hear what's going on. Don't feel what's going on around you. You don't connect to what's going on around you. You're in a bubble, and you're kind of lost. It's very clear. Lucio is lost, right?
Yes.
It's not untypical, most people, but he's lost, right? We can see that. So it's very important to identify the abstract conception here that allows us to understand the bigger understanding here, right? This is about awareness and particularly attunement. Yeah. Please continue, Beena. Oh, I can read a bit as well if you want. Are you reading okay? You can
Yes,
see?
now it is okay. Yes.
All right, please go. Please go.
I asked them to give me all the details of that event, but they said it had been taking place before their time. or when they were still very young. Licio added with that people secretly believed that Sevicus had been only a fool and that no one could harm a real sorcerer. I tried to question them further on their opinion about sorcerers. They did not seem to have much interest in the subject. Besides, they were eager to start out and shoot the 22 rifle I had brought. We were
Point
silent
two
for a
two.
while.
Yeah.
Okay, .22 rifle I had
Yeah.
brought. We were silent for a while as we walked toward the thick chaparral. Then Eligio, who was
Chaparral.
the
Chaparral.
chaparral, okay, the thick chaparral, then Eligio, who was at the head of the line, turned around and said to me, perhaps uh, we are the crazy ones. Perhaps Don Juan is right. Look at the way we live. Lucio and Benigno
There you
protested.
go.
I tried to mediate, sorry. I tried to
Yeah.
mediate.
Yeah.
I agreed with Eligio and told them that I myself had felt that the way I lived was somehow wrong. Benigno said that I had no business complaining about my life, that I had money and I had a car. I
Right.
retorted
See
that,
again the shallowness of the bubble, right?
yes,
Benigno and Lucio think that if you got money in a car, everything is wonderful. They don't realize that that's not enough. And you get to, yes, when you don't have it, you think that's what you want. But when you get it, then you realize, no, it's not. So we have to be very careful of these false goals. And this is what Moreness culture is all about. The very concept of Moreness, it is more than that kind of more. It's not more in terms of possessions and quantity and wealth and fame and status. No, it's moreness in a real sense of what actually is really valuable, which is things like peace of being, independence of being, connecting to joy, yes, connecting to attunement, being in attunement. This is a wonder and a marvel and a magnificence and an awesomeness and an empowerment that's beyond speaking. But it's all outside of the usual what we think of as valuable and useful, like this, right? And we can so clearly see it here, how shallow they are. But it's bubble logic. Yeah. Very important to be aware of, right, Beena?
yes. I'm also thinking that, okay, they're uh, this particular mindset, what they are right now, the specific one, um, it is common, unfortunately, but it is common when people don't have much resources. Uh, they do get into that bubble where they
Yeah.
attach their all their motivation to some specific thing, physical object, in terms of, okay, a car or having
Right.
money or something like that. And because they never get a chance to exercise their choices, they remain stuck in this,
Yes.
and it never
Yeah.
allows
Yeah.
them, never get this opportunity to see beyond that,
Yeah.
because that one thing, that one physical object becomes so huge in their life that it actually just prevent them to see beyond that, which is, of course,
Yeah.
it is not 100%. Some people have the moreness, and they have, even
Yeah.
when they don't exercise their choices, but they do get the moreness because they have this ability to see beyond that. Things never get so
Yeah.
big and huge in their life. Physical objects or material things never get so huge and big in their life, and they still could see and perceive them. But even in those cases, so far what I have observed, they get some glimpse of moreness other than the usual stuff. So they have some sneak
Yeah.
peek that,
Yeah.
okay, yes, the moreness exists. So that's why I always say that, okay, having this ability to exercise your choices in life is the ultimate, okay, not the ultimate, but the big blessing, big value,
Yeah.
because it enables
Yeah.
you to see beyond what is obvious and what is just available.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's even Stephen though, like you're saying, when you don't have uh, wealth or even economic stability, you
Yes.
crave that, you want that because you think that's the most important. But it can go the other way too, because you can say, I have nothing, so I need to look for something. okay, the usual
Yes.
route, wealth, financial, that's not possible for me, or it's not likely to be me. So let me find my moreness elsewhere, as we're going to hear this in Don Juan's story. Yeah, when later, much later in the books, when he talks about how he came to be an apprentice, yeah, we are going to see that, right? Where he realized at some point that, wow, this is a way to go that will give me something more, right? So it's just finding that moreness in a different way.
Yes.
The problem is what we
Yes.
conceive of as moreness, right? And the very term moreness, when you think about it, it
Are you still there?
implies a spiritual connectivity. It
Okay, I didn't
implies
know that. Okay, okay.
an abstractness. Yes? Say again, Beena? What happened? Did you drop off, Beena? I think so. I think so. Let's see what happened. I'm getting some notifications. Oh, that's Norma. Okay. All right. I don't know what happened to Beena. I think Beena's dropped the connection. Yeah. All right. No worries. We'll just continue. Benigno said that I had no business complaining about my life, that I had money and I had a car. I retorted that I could easily say that they themselves were better off because each owned a piece of land. They responded in unison that the owner of the land was the federal bank. I told them that I did not own my car either, that the Bank of California owned it, and that my life was only different but not better than theirs. By that time, we were already in the dense shrubs. We did not find any deer or wild boars. Well, if you got a .22, I don't think you are going to be shooting wild boars, particularly, yeah, or deer. Anyway, uh, just by the way, yeah, it's a bit foolish. But we got 3 jackrabbits. That's about all that a .22 is good for. Small game. Bigger game is very hard. You're just going to injure them, especially a wild boar. They have very thick skin, and especially if you try and shoot them in the head, they got incredibly thick skulls, and just bounce off their skull and irritate them. You'll be in trouble. Anyway, it's interesting, just ignorance here, obviously, right? Carlos is ignorance. He doesn't know about such stuff. On our return, we stopped at Lucio's house, and he announced that his wife was going to make rabbit stew. Benigno went to the store to buy a bottle of tequila and get us some sodas. When we came back, Don Juan was with him. Did you find my grandpa at the store buying beer? Lucio said. Lucio asked, laughing. I haven't been invited to the reunion, Don Juan said. I just dropped by to ask Carlos if he's leaving for Hermosillo. I told him I was planning to leave the next day, and while we talked, Benigno distributed the bottles. Eligio gave his to Don Juan. All right, so this is quite funny and fascinating, right? Culturally specific traditions or habits or procedures. Sometimes these things can be quite ridiculous. Eligio gave his to Don Juan, and since among the Yaquis it is deadly impolite to refuse, even as a courtesy, Don Juan took it quietly. I gave mine to Eligio, and he was obliged to take it. So Benigno, in turn, gave me his bottle. But Lucio, sneaky Lucio, who had obviously visualized the entire scheme of Yaki good manners, had already finished drinking his soda. He turned to Benigno, who had a pathetic look on his face, and said, laughing, "They screwed you out of your bottle." Don Juan said he never drank soda and placed his bottle in Benigno's hands. We sat under the Ramada in silence. See, to me, things that force stuff, that expectations and obligations, they're problematic like this. To what end? It's just foolishness. There's no point to it. It's just stuff that's happened over time, but no point to it. Yeah. Eligio seemed to be nervous. He fidgeted with the brim of his hat. I've been thinking about what you said the other night, he said to Don Juan. How can peyote change our life? How? Don Juan did not answer. He stared fixedly at Eligio for a moment and then began to sing in Yaqui. It was not a proper song, but a short recitation. We remained quiet for a long time. Then I asked Don Juan to translate the Yaqui words for me. That was only for Yaquis, he said matter-of-factly. I felt dejected. I was sure he had said something of great importance. Eligio is an Indian, Don Juan finally said to me. And as an Indio, Eligio has nothing. We Indians have nothing. All you see around here belongs to the Yoris. The Yaquis have only their wrath and what the land offers to them freely. Very interesting point there. Now we have to take things in context. I don't know how much of this Don Juan really connects to, because as a seer, as a person of knowledge, Don Juan is long past any cultural identification. But what he's saying, yeah, he's saying it to Carlos, but it may also be for the benefit of Eliseo and Lucio and Benigno. Yeah. So we have to keep things, always keep the context in mind. Yeah. So not to, otherwise you can get distorted perspectives, right? You have to know what the internal motivation is. Don Juan is looking here to connect and identify and hold on to Eliseo's interest. Right? It's a very earnest interest. So he has to do whatever he can to go get Eliseo to go that little bit further, right? And hopefully through that also Lucio, maybe in the end. Nobody uttered a sound for quite some time. Then, so obviously what he said was very impactful. Yes. Nobody uttered a sound for quite some time. Then Don Juan stood up and said goodbye and walked away. We looked at him until he had disappeared behind the bend of a road. All of us seemed to be nervous. Lucio told us in a disorientated manner that his grandfather had not stayed because he hated rabbit stew. Eliseo seemed to be immersed in thoughts. Benigno turned to me and said loudly, I think the Lord is going to punish you and Don Juan for what you're doing. Lucio began to laugh and Benigno joined them. You're clowning, Benigno, Eliseo said somberly. What you've just said isn't worth a damn. Yeah. So, Eliseo at least is starting to see past the foolishness, the bubbleness, right, of this, and repeating cliche things, right, that people believe. Yeah. September 15, 1968, yeah, my birthday. It was 9 o'clock Saturday night. Don Juan sat in front of Eliseo in the center of the Ramada of Lucio's house. Don Juan placed his sack of, so we're jumping now, right? So Don Juan sat in front of Eliseo in the center of the Ramada of Lucio's house. So Lucio has agreed now to take peyote and connect to Mescalito. Don Juan placed his sack peyote buttons between them and sang while rocking his body slightly back and forth. Lucio, Benigno, and I sat 5 or 6 feet behind Eliseo with our backs against the wall. It is very interesting that Lucio and Benigno are actually present. Right? It is, to me, it seems to be that me personally, if I was if I was in Don Juan's place, I would not easily invite Lucio and Benigno because they have so much bubble perception and beliefs that whatever they see is going to be interpreted according to that bubble. They aren't ready to actually see past their bubbles. So it's counterproductive bringing them there. Yeah. I would rather have them not be there and have them be interested now by exclusion. Well, why are you excluding us? Well, because you're in a bubble and you won't be able to see the realness of what's going on. And now they're going to think about that a little bit, and they desire to be there maybe next time. And say, if you can show me that you've got a different perception on this, that you're more earnest and you're not just believing your own nonsense, then fine, sure, then we'll be open, right? Open the door, use a bit of motivation, which is the curiosity motivation, yeah? And also to be included, right? Especially in cultures like that, or most cultures, people want to be included. They don't like to be excluded. So utilize that, right? Utilize that, leverage it. It was 9 o'clock Saturday night. Don Juan sat in front of Eliseo in the center of Ramada of Lucio's house. Oh, I read all this, sorry. With our backs against the wall. It was quite dark at first. We had been sitting inside the house under the gasoline lantern waiting for Don Juan. He had called us out to the Ramada when he had arrived and had told us where to sit. After a while, my eyes became accustomed to the dark. I could see everyone clearly. I noticed that Eliseo seemed to be terrified. His entire body shook. His teeth chattered uncontrollably. He was convulsed with spasmodic jerks of his head and back. Absolutely fascinating. Yes, just that the idea of things can have such a massive effect. Or perhaps the peyote buttons were already affecting him. That's really, really fascinating. But still, Don Juan spoke to him, telling him not to be afraid and trust the protector and to think of nothing else. capital T trust. I've spoken it in other videos many times. Capital T trust is an incredible thing. Why? Because it's not ordinary trust. That's why it's capital T trust. What's the difference? Capital T trust is based on the foundation, the bedrock of impeccability. Yeah? When you have done everything you can, when you've been thorough, diligent, conscientious, scrupulous, etc., you've minimized risk. You've thought clearly. You've thought things through to the end. Key point of way of impeccability. You've also perspective shifted to multiple perspectives. Thus, when you undertake something, you know what it is that you're going to do. You're aware of the risks and you've minimized them to the absolute minimum. Yes. And therefore, you now, the only thing left to you to do is to trust, because you're doing it for the right reasons. You know there's potentially some risk, but really when you look at it in the grand big picture, there's no other alternative. In Elicio's case, is there an alternative for him? No, there isn't. Not when you look at his life in totality. It's an empty life or a life with potential moreness. Is this really a choice? No, it is technically, but of course not really. Yeah. So now, when you're in that situation, you cannot be afraid, because also if you're aware of attention and how the brain works, your fear will create things to be afraid of. So you have to be very careful. Yes. So this deeper understanding, this is what Moreness-Culture is all about. Yes. You connect to the moreness of things, not just the surface. Yeah. Depth, sophistication, understanding, awareness. Yeah. Huge. Right. Very powerful. Don Juan spoke to him, telling him not to be afraid and trust the protector and to think of nothing else. He casually took a Pt12 button, offered it to Lucio, and ordered him to chew it very slowly. Lucio whined like a puppy and recoiled. His breathing was very rapid. It sounded like the whizzing of bellows. He took off his hat and wiped his forehead. He covered his face with his hands. I thought he was crying. It was a very long, tense moment before he regained some control of himself. He sat up straight and, still covering his face with one hand, took the Pt12 button and began doing it. I felt a tremendous apprehension. I had not realized until then that I was perhaps as scared as Lucio. My mouth had a dryness similar to that produced by Pt12. Lucio chewed the button for a long time. My tension increased. I began to whine involuntarily as my respiration became more accelerated. Don Juan began to chant louder. Then he offered another button to Lucio, and after Lucio had finished it, he offered him dry fruit and told him to chew it very slowly. Lucio got up repeatedly and went to the bushes. At one point, he asked for water. Don Juan told him not to drink it, but only to swish it in his mouth. Lucio chewed 2 more buttons, and Don Juan gave him dry meat. By the time he had chewed his 10th button, I was nearly sick with anxiety. Fascinating Carlos's empathy here, right? And also his own insecurity, which is, why are you afraid? Why are you anxious? Why are you not eager? Why are you not enthusiastic and supportive and appreciative of the opportunity that Lucio has? Very peculiar. Suddenly, Lucio slumped forward and his forehead hit the ground. He rolled on his left side and jerked convulsively. I looked at my watch. It was 20 after 11. Lucio tossed, wobbled, and moaned for over an hour while he lay on the floor. Don Juan maintained the same position in front of him. His Pt12 songs were almost a murmur. Benigno, who was sitting to my right, looked inattentive. Lucio, next to him, had slumped on his side and was snoring. Lucio's body crumpled into a contorted position. He lay on his right side, and his front towards me, and his hands between his legs. His body gave a powerful jump, and he turned on his back. Wow. With his legs slightly curved, his left hand waved up and down with an extremely free and elegant motion. His right hand repeated the same pattern, and then both arms alternated in a wavering, slow movement, resembling that of a harpist. The movement became more vigorous by degrees. His arms had a perceptible vibration and went up and down like pistons. At the same time, his hands rotated onward at the wrist, and his fingers quivered. It was a beautiful, harmonious, hypnotic sight. I thought his rhythm and muscular control were beyond comparison. Lucio then rose slowly, as if he was stretching against an enveloping force. His body shivered. Very interesting, the capital S shivered there. I think it's a typo, but still. Very interesting. His body shivered. He squatted and then pushed himself up to an erect position. His arms, trunk, and head trembled as if an intermittent electric current were going through him. It was as if though a force outside his control was setting him or driving him up. Don Juan's chanting became very loud. Lucio and Benigno woke up and looked at the scene uninterestedly for a while and then went back to sleep. This is very crucial, just that little part, right? It's crucial. Why? Because it's later we are going to see Carlos's perception is shifted to something which is now very potent here. He's capital P perceiving here. Lucio and Benigno, they just see the ordinary world, right? They're not seeing the alternate reality. And it's a very, very big deal. Very, very big deal. Eliseo seemed to be moving up and up. He was apparently climbing. He cupped his hands and seemed to grab onto objects beyond my vision. He pushed himself up and paused to catch his breath. I wanted to see his eyes and move closer to him, but Don Juan gave me a fierce look and I recoiled to my place. Yes, don't be messing with things, Carlos. Then Eliseo jumped. It was a final formidable leap. He had apparently reached his goal. He puffed and sobbed with the exertion. He seemed to be holding onto a ledge, but something was overtaking him. He shrieked desperately. His grip faltered and he began to fall. His body arched backward and was convulsed from head to toe with the most beautiful coordinated ripple. The ripple went through him perhaps 100 times before his body collapsed like a lifeless burlap sack. After a while, he extended his arms in front of him as though he was protecting his face. His legs stretched out backwards as he lay on his chest. They were arched a few inches above the ground, giving his body the very appearance of sliding or flying at an incredible speed. His head was arched as far back as possible. His arms looked over his eyes. His arms locked over his eyes, shielding them. I could feel the wind hissing around him. I gasped and gave a loud involuntary shriek. Lucio and Benigno woke and looked at Eliseo curiously. If you promise to be a motorcycle, I will chew it now, Lucio said loudly. I looked at Don Juan. He made an imperative gesture with his head. Son of a bitch, Lucio mumbled and went back to sleep. Under those conditions, Lucio, it would kill you, no, or at least do you some serious harm, or be very unpleasant. Eliseo stood up and began walking. He took a couple of steps toward me and stopped. I could see him smiling with a beatific expression. He tried to whistle. There was no clear sound, yet it had harmony. It was a tune. It had only a couple of bars, which he repeated over and over. After a while, the whistling was distinctly audible, and then it became a sharp melody. Eliseo mumbled unintelligible words. The words seemed to be the lyrics to the tune. He repeated it for hours. A very simple song, repetitious, monotonous, and yet strangely beautiful. A song of power. Eliseo seemed to be looking at something while he sang. At one moment, he got very close to me. I saw his eyes in the semi-darkness. They were glassy, transfixed. He smiled and giggled. He walked and sat down and walked again, groaning and sighing. Suddenly, something seemed to have pushed him from behind. His body arched in the middle as though moved by a direct force. At one instant, Eliseo was balanced on the tips of his toes, making nearly a complete circle, his hands touching the ground. He dropped to the ground again, softly on his back, and extended his whole length, acquiring a strange rigidity. He whimpered and groaned for a while, then began to snore. Don Juan covered him with some burlap sacks. It was 5:35 a.m. Lucio and Benigno had fallen asleep shoulder to shoulder with their backs against the wall. Don Juan and I sat quietly for a very long time. He seemed to be tired. I broke the silence and asked him about Eliseo. He told me that Eliseo's encounter with Mescalito had been exceptionally successful. Mescalito had taught him a song the first time they met, and that was indeed extraordinary. I asked him why he had not let Lucio take some for a motorcycle. He said that Mescalito would have killed Lucio if he had approached him under such conditions. Don Juan admitted that he had prepared everything carefully to convince his grandson. He told me that he had counted on my friendship with Lucio as the central part of his strategy. He said that Lucio had always been his great concern, and that at one time they had lived together and were very close. But Lucio became gravely ill when he was 7, and Don Juan's son, a devout Catholic, made a vow to the Virgin of Guadalupe that Lucio would join a sacred dancing society if his life was spared. Lucio recovered and was forced to carry out the promise. He lasted 1 week as an apprentice and then made up his mind to break the vow. He thought he would have to die as a result of it, braced himself, and for a whole day he waited for death to come. Everybody made fun of the boy, and the incident was never forgotten. Don Juan did not speak for a long time. He seemed to have become engulfed in thoughts. My setup was for Lucio, and I found Elisio instead. I knew it was useless. But when we like someone, we should properly insist, as though it were possible to remake men. Lucio had courage when he was a little boy, and then he lost it along the way. Can you bewitch him, Don Juan? Bewitch him for what? So he will change and regain his courage. You can't bewitch for courage. Courage is something personal. Bewitching is for rendering people harmless or sick or dumb. You don't bewitch to make warriors. To be a warrior, you have to be crystal clear, like Elisio. There you have a man of courage. Elisio snored peacefully under the burlap sacks. It was already daylight. The sky was impeccably blue. There were no clouds in sight. I would give anything in this world, I said, to know about Elisio's journey. Would you mind if I asked him to tell me? You should not, under any circumstances, ask him to do that. Why not? I tell you about my experiences. That's different. It is not your inclination to keep things to yourself. Elisio is an Indian. His journey is all he has. I wish it had been Lucio. Isn't there anything you can do, Don Juan? No. Unfortunately, there is no way to make bones for a jellyfish. It was only my folly. The sun came out. Its light blurred my tired eyes. You've told me time and time again, Don Juan, that a sorcerer cannot have follies. I never thought you could have any. Very interesting. Don Juan looked at me piercingly. He got up, glanced at Elisio and then at Lucio. He tucked his hat on his head, patting it on the top. It's possible to insist, to properly insist, even though we know that what we're doing is useless. But we must know first that our acts are useless, and yet we must proceed as if we didn't know it. That's a sorcerer's controlled folly. This is a very important point, this controlled folly. Very, very, very huge point. And I actually want to leave it there, yeah? On this point of controlled folly, because this is going to become a major topic. Yes, it's going to influence pretty much everything that Carlos is going to be dealing in. But it's the first time that Carlos recognizes this topic, right? And he hears it. Don Juan has said it before, but he hasn't heard it, because he was in his bubble, right? So this is a very big deal. Yeah. Very big deal, and I want to add that to my quote file. The quotes that I'm pulling from Carlos here, right? It's just wonderful to do this, like I said before, and you can, you can get lots out of this. Yeah, you get tremendous amount when you sort them later, you categorize them, and you put them in the like under controlled folly, right? This is the first time he's talking about controlled folly, but he's going to say a lot more about controlled folly, and it's very helpful to connect to that, because, like I said, as you look at the things where it said over the course of the 14 books, yeah, it's spread out. So if you're pulling quotes, you're going to have a bit of controlled folly, a lot of other stuff, and then controlled folly again. But when you sort them to be controlled folly only, you get the fullness of Don Juan's understanding on controlled folly and the depth of what it means, right? And those multiple perspectives on it. And that is very, very valuable, because when we have one perspective, we only see partially. Yes, we don't get to see the wholeness. But if you develop enough perspectives, your brain can put together the wholeness, even though you haven't seen all perspectives. You don't need to. Your brain at some point can put it together. And that's why we want to have multiple perspectives, yes, until your brain puts it together. It's a very, very, very powerful mechanism, right? Very useful to understand and to use the brain's innate power, the brain's innate magic, yes? All right, so we'll leave it there, and we'll come back next time on this new section here. Very, very cool. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm sorry Beena dropped. They having troubles with the internet over there where she is, just.
I'm listening.
I didn't know you're back. Oh,
All
sorry,
the time.
Beena.
It was just for a few seconds, and I'm there, and I'm up here. Sorry, sorry.
I didn't see you come back. You were hidden behind the chat, for the TikTok chat. Sorry, Beena. Sorry. Okay, well,
No. It's okay. I was just
do you have
enjoying
any
that.
comments about all of this, Beena?
This is again interesting and assumptions, and also that what we were discussing before coming to live, we were discussing those things. Uh, Again, it's like every generation, every time, every era has these type of things. The intensity may vary, but the concept, the ideas about those things, and of course the bubble mindset. We all have some sort of bubble, even if it is much bigger than others, but still it's a bubble. And that understanding, that one understanding, that no matter how much I am thinking of myself, considering myself aware, still it's a bubble. And of course it is going to be just okay, at some point it is going to be popped, and then I have to be in a bigger bubble. So this this understanding, and also having the idea of that there is always more, this is so life
Oh,
changing, life transforming right there for me. I'm observing that how the concept of the idea of Don Juan, his grandson have, is completely different, and what Carlos is thinking about him. Sometimes the bias and some incident in your life tainted to your whole perspective in general for everything, and lack of awareness also, that rigidness, that oh, this thing is this, cannot be other than this, whatever I am
yeah.
thinking of. That's wonderful.
Most marvelous. Yes. Power in the mundane. When we
Exactly.
realize that the sublime exists in the mundane, it's just a perspective shift away. That's all.
Yes.
We just have to learn to shift our perspective, and then suddenly we connect to all the moreness, right? Which is the
Yes.
sublime, the profound, the fantastic, the awesome, right? All the superlatives. That's what moreness is. Yeah, moreness is
Yes.
all of that. Yeah, it's too fantastic. It's too fantastic. Um, Also, though, Bina, obviously, Carlos, capital P, perceived what was going on in the alternate reality with Elisha, whereas
Yes.
Benigno and Lucio could not, right? They only saw
Exactly.
through regular eyes. Yeah, perceived with regular perception. So very powerful stuff. Very powerful stuff. Yes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Ah,
And it applies to everything. They were not able
yeah,
to perceive, or in common terms, at see what Don Juan could see. But it is exactly
correct.
for the same, and it applies to everything in life. What other
Yeah,
people,
yeah.
if they have experienced the moreness in any terms, in any way, and one who cannot, who has not so far, they will have a completely different understanding of life in general.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's huge. It's huge. Perception and the ability to perceive
Yes.
moreness is incredible. It's incredible. It enhances your life like crazy, and it's very empowering. Yes.
Yes, and I don't want to go into detail, but um, a gesture has been made by someone uh, in in a child's life, which I know that okay, those things, those physical objects, has very limited value, but the intent and the timing and the way it has been introduced to them will make a huge impact in their life, or in a very long way, like a very huge way, because uh, once you encounter the moreness, once you see that things are possible even when they seem impossible, it actually just unhook you from the limitedness, and introduce you to the
Yeah.
moreness. So gestures are very important in anyone's life. I'm experiencing, I'm
Yeah.
blessed that I'm part of that in a very limited, specific way. But just being aware of this thing, that this has been done, and I know that it, no matter what. sooner or later, it will change the mindset of that person.
Oh yeah.
Because once you experience the moreness, once you just taste it, you can never go back.
Yes. 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 That's the thing, is to break the
Gestures, capital
bubble.
G
See, that
gestures
was
are
the
super
whole
powerful.
issue here.
Yes.
Say again, Beena?
I was just saying that capital G gestures are
Yeah.
something beyond
Oh
the
yeah.
usual understanding that how
Oh yes.
valuable they are.
Oh yes. Oh yes. And the energy that went into that, like Don Juan
Exactly.
said, he looked to connect with Lucio, but found Eliseo instead, right? Because the energy is there, the power was there. Yeah, capital G gestures are very powerful, yes. And they have an effect in the world, even if it's not always the effect we intend, because it's energy that you're putting out there, intent. Yeah, a very big deal. Very, very big deal. And also for me, this section, this whole Lucio story, right? It's about penetrating the bubble. This is very difficult. This is very, very
Yes.
difficult. You can't you can't connect to a bubble logic from outside the bubble. You have to use the
Exactly.
internal bubble logic to basically contradict itself and therefore implode the bubble. Popping it from outside, this does not work because the person just recreates the bubble, right? Or it's very difficult to pop it from outside, and you could get all sorts of trouble by popping bubbles. So it's a very, very difficult thing to do, to get inside the bubble and find logic from within that particular bubble logic that contradicts or collapses itself. And say, okay, right. Yeah, that's really, really a tricky thing to do, but it is doable, right? It is doable. Of
Yes.
course, on the other hand, we have to also trust the universe. Yeah, we have to
Exactly.
trust the universe, and the way to really go about doing this is not to insist on your own personal likes and wants, yeah, but to look at it from an
Yes.
attunement point of view, and enlist the aid of the universe in doing such things. Now you will find ways to do the impossible, yeah, when the universe is assisting. If it does, that's the point, right? And you have to wait for that attunement, for those anomalies to guide you, right, and connect that way. Very, very, very powerful. Yeah, very important to be aware of. So there are other ways of doing these things. Yes, there are other ways. Very cool, very cool. And just again, it's Moreness-Culture, see, which is about the moreness of things. It's not just the usual, not the ordinary, not the simple. Yeah, understanding the full depth of what's going on. Yeah, right, Beena?
Yes.
Very, very wonderful and very, very potent. Very marvelous. All right, we'll end it here. Yes,
Yes.
Beena?
Yes. Yes. Perfect timing. Thank you so much,
Bye
everyone.
bye,
Thank you
everybody.
so much, sir, for sharing. And yes, thank you so much, everyone who joined us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And will watch us recorded. Please, if you find this video and if you see that, okay, there is something valuable, please do click like and subscribe to this channel. And please hit the notification bell also, because
Yeah,
it is going to
yeah.
be a reminder for you that you have moreness available in your life, which is a big deal, big, huge deal.
Oh,
And of
yes.
course, because I am experiencing this, and sometimes we need reminders. We need a positive reminders like affirmations and confirmations in your life that you have moreness available. We need that. So please don't
Yeah.
hesitate to hit the notification bell, because it is going to be a
Just start
reminder
paying
for you that
attention and you'll see it come.
yes, exactly, that you
Yeah,
have moreness available. It is available, it is free, you can access it at any time. So please
yeah.
do make some effort and make a deliberate choice of clicking like and subscribe to this channel. And of course,
There you
like
go.
it's same like okay for applies to other channels like mine. Okay,
Yeah.
exactly like what they are sharing. So please do put some effort, because this is how you are going to train your online algorithm, which is ultimately going to affect your life algorithm. Deliberate
Oh, yeah.
choices
Oh, yeah.
are keys for the better future. Please do pay attention to that and make sensible choices, deliberate choices. Thank you so
Oh,
much,
yeah.
everyone, for joining us. We will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you,
Bye
Syl,
bye.
and bye for now.
Bye bye, everybody. Bye bye, bye bye, bye bye.